The Galactic Council had labeled Earth Sector as Zone 7, primitive species under observation. For 3 centuries, humanity had been watched, studied, and dismissed as unremarkable. The galaxy's elder races, the crystalline Vathors, the telepathic Mindari, and the ancient Draconi agreed on one thing: humans were soft, emotional, and hopelessly sentimental. Benjamin Torres never cared much about galactic politics. At 43, he was content with his simple life as a maintenance worker aboard the orbital station Meridian 5, a bustling hub where dozens of alien species conducted trade and diplomacy. While ambassadors negotiated treaties and merchants hawked exotic goods, Benjamin mopped floors and fixed broken air filtration units. It was during his late-night shift, in the forgotten cargo bay 7 Delta, that he heard them, tiny, desperate chirps echoing through the metallic corridors. Benjamin followed the sound to a discarded cryogenic container, its seals broken and frost coating its exterior. Inside, huddled together for warmth, were 3 creatures no larger than his forearm. Their scales shimmered like molten copper, and their eyes, bright amber and filled with fear, locked onto his. Draconi hatchlings, he whispered, recognition dawning. These were the offspring of the galaxy's most powerful species, the dragon-like beings who commanded respect and fear across 1,000 systems. The hatchlings were freezing. Their scales, which should have radiated heat, were dull and cold to the touch. One of them weakly extended a tiny wing, and Benjamin saw the delicate membrane was torn, likely from whatever accident had left them abandoned here. Any sensible person would have reported this to station security. The Draconi were fiercely protective of their young, and their wrath was legendary. But as Benjamin looked at those trembling creatures, he didn't see the children of a mighty empire. He saw babies who needed help. He carefully gathered them into his jacket, feeling their cold bodies press against his chest as he hurried back to his quarters. His apartment was modest, a single room with a bed, a small kitchen, and walls covered with pictures of his daughter Isla back on Earth. Benjamin laid the hatchlings on his bed and cranked up the heater. They were severely hypothermic, their breathing shallow. He knew nothing about Draconi biology, but he knew about keeping things warm and safe. He fashioned a nest from blankets and positioned a heat lamp he'd borrowed from the hydroponics bay above them. Then he did something that would later scandalize xenobiologists across the galaxy. He began feeding them warm broth from his own dinner, one tiny spoonful at a time. The hatchlings were weak, but their survival instinct was strong. They lapped at the broth, their forked tongues working clumsily. As warmth returned to their bodies, their scales began to glow softly, like embers rekindling. For 3 days, Benjamin called in sick to work, something he'd never done in 15 years. He spent every hour caring for the hatchlings, whom he'd started calling Spark, Ember, and Flicker. He learned that they liked being sung to, that they purred when content, and that they were intensely curious about everything in his quarters. On the 4th day, his door chimed. Benjamin's heart sank as he opened it to find Isla, not his daughter, but Ambassador Isla Dracar, the station's Draconi representative. She was magnificent and terrifying, standing nearly 8 feet tall with scales that gleamed like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with inner fire. Behind her stood 4 armed guards. "I have tracked my kin to this location," she said, her voice a rumble of barely contained fury. "You will return them immediately, human, and then we will discuss your punishment." Benjamin stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Isla Dracar froze when she saw the scene before her. The 3 hatchlings were nestled in their makeshift nest, their scales healthy and glowing. Spark, the boldest, chirped excitedly at the sight of Isla and waddled toward her on unsteady legs. The apartment smelled of soup and fresh blankets, and the walls were covered with hand-drawn charts tracking each hatchling's food intake, sleep patterns, and behavioral notes. They were freezing in cargo bay 7 Delta. Benjamin explained quietly. "The cryogenic container was damaged. I didn't know who to contact, so I just did what I could." Isla Dracar knelt down, her massive form somehow gentle as she examined the hatchlings. She ran her taloned fingers over embers. Repaired wing membrane, Benjamin had carefully stitched it using techniques he'd learned. Repairing pressure suits. "These are the children of High Matriarch Serac," Isla said finally, her voice thick with emotion. They were being transported to the breeding colonies when pirates attacked. We thought them lost to the void. She turned to Benjamin and he braced himself for the worst. Instead, he saw tears glistening in her ancient eyes. "You are human," she said, as if the word explained everything and nothing. "You have no genetic imperative to protect offspring not your own. You possess no telepathic bond to sense their distress. By all logic of the elder races, you should have walked away." "They were babies," Benjamin replied simply. "They needed help." That moment changed everything. The story spread throughout Meridian 5 and beyond. The Draconi, who had dismissed humanity as weak and overly emotional, suddenly understood that these qualities were not weaknesses, but extraordinary strengths. Where logic demanded efficiency, humans chose compassion. Where survival instinct said to protect only one's own, humans extended kindness to all. High Matriarch Sarek herself came to the station, and before the assembled Galactic Council, she did something unprecedented. A Draconi matriarch bowed to a human. "We have misjudged your species," she declared. "Any civilization that produces individuals like Benjamin Torres deserves not observation, but respect." Benjamin wanted no reward, no recognition. He returned to his janitorial duties, content with his simple life. But Earth's status in the galaxy changed forever. Humanity was upgraded from primitive species to sentient species of notable compassion, and trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges flooded in from races who wanted to understand these strange, soft-hearted beings. Years later, Benjamin retired to Earth, where his daughter, the real Isla, named after an old family friend, had given him grandchildren. On quiet evenings, he would sit on his porch and watch the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, 3 dragons named Spark, Ember, and Flicker were thriving, carrying with them the memory of a janitor who saw not powerful aliens, but babies who needed warmth. And across the galaxy, the elder races were learning a valuable lesson. Sometimes the greatest strength isn't the ability to conquer or dominate, but the simple courage to care. That was humanity's gift to the stars, not weapons or technology, but the revolutionary idea that every life, no matter how small or alien, deserved kindness. And in a cold, logical universe, that changed everything.